complete allowance. And when I say allowance, I mean no repression of the mind, no suppression of the mind. This is actually something that many spiritual traditions have done. Many spiritual traditions have been trying to repress the mind. You know, there are many traditions that have happened like that. Like certain Christianity, especially mainstream Christianity, enormous suppression of life. There's even a certain statement in the Bible which says that whoever is a friend of the world is against so-called God. Which is very strange, because even in their own scripture they're saying God is everywhere. So if the so-called divine is everywhere, then there's nothing in existence which is not divine, right? Every atom of this existence is divine. So even according to their own logic, it doesn't fit. So the important thing is not to suppress the mind. It's a bit like this. There was once a disciple who came to see a yogi, and he asked him, "Please, give me enlightenment. I'm bursting forth with this longing for union, but my time left on this earth is very short. I'm a very old man, and I cannot bother to get involved in practice. So please, I've heard you're such a tremendously powerful yogi, a very wise yogi. Please just give me enlightenment." So the yogi said, "Okay, I'm going to give you enlightenment. You just have to do one thing." So the old man said, "Yes, I'll do anything. You tell me to do anything and I'll do it." He said, "Okay, just sit here for 1 hour. I have some things that I have to go on my way and do. But just remain in this place for 1 hour. Just sit, don't do anything. Very simple thing. Just sit and don't do anything. Just, I want you to do one thing. Just one thing is not allowed while you're sitting. And if you can manage this, I promise you, enlightenment will happen. You have my blessings on that." So the man said, "Okay, what is it?" So the yogi said, "Okay, don't think of an elephant." Then the old man said, "Oh, that's not a problem. That's it? That's all that I have to do? Just not think of an elephant? That's so easy." So he said, "Okay." So the yogi went on his way. And now, sitting in that one place, he said, "Okay, do not think about an elephant." But trying not to think of an elephant, the very idea of not thinking of an elephant, that in itself, okay, it started disturbing the hell out of him. My God, how can I not think of an elephant? And his mind, suddenly elephants are cycling all over the place in his mind. And for that whole hour, nothing else except the obsession with elephants was happening. And the yogi came back and he said, "Okay, so did you manage it?" And the guy said, "My God, I couldn't even sit for 10 seconds without thinking about elephants. What did you do to me? You've made me so neurotic and obsessed and addicted to elephants." Then the yogi said, "Okay, today you've learned your first lesson of stillness. Don't repress the mind." So this is an essential thing. Don't suppress anything that's happening in your experience, because it's exactly like this. This is a great misunderstanding, that by suppressing anything you're actually doing away with it, or that you're escaping from it. By suppressing anything, let's say sexual desire, does that experience disappear? Why doesn't it disappear?
Because you're...
You tell me why.
Because in the end, no matter how much you suppress anything, it comes back into a different type of craving.
Yeah, but
the same way.
Why? What happens in the mind? What happens in the mind which makes suppression ineffective? Why is it that when a certain experience arises and you try to keep it hidden in the background, You try to keep it hidden in the basement of the mind. Why is it that it does not disappear?
Because you haven't allowed it to run its course.
Keep going.
Through it running its course within the mind and not being affected by it, you're more capable of allowing it to settle and disappear. So you're giving it energy in that sense for it to remain by suppressing it. You're working on it when it's not needed to do any work at all.
Isn't any experience of the mind memory? Right?
Yeah.
Do you know that even when we're going to sleep in the night, you may be, in your experience, not conscious at all, but let's say there's the sound of running water in the background, that even that becomes recorded. The mind is in such a way that whatever enters into our perception, whether we're aware of it or whether we're not aware of it, it's all recorded. So this is like a film that's constantly going on. The film is constantly running. So what happens when you try to suppress any experience? That experience doesn't just disappear. As a memory, it just shifts down into your unconscious and it gathers force there. So this is why, for example, some people who continue suppressing, let's say, sexual desire, it continues growing and growing, intensifying and intensifying, and eventually one day, just like a volcano, it explodes. You know what happens in a volcano? When all the intensity of the heat and the lava continues being crystallized, it erupts, doesn't it? In fact, this is one of the reasons why in our society you see things that apparently seem to be random acts of violence, random eruptions of violence. Actually, these are not random acts. These are things that have been cultivating for a very long time. Somebody's suppressing the violence of his mind and he goes on suppressing it, suppressing his desires, suppressing any emotion or mental state or thought. And one day it gathers so much force that it has to express itself. So this is why meditation has nothing at all to do with suppressing the mind. Don't suppress anything. You learn to see things without attraction, without trying to escape from it. Let things remain exactly as they are, no matter how pleasant, no matter how unpleasant. But just remain a witness. Be an observer. You find once there's even a small gap in your experience between the observer and the observed, now there's a certain freedom. Usually because this gap is not there, they're entangled in each other. The fear arises, you're possessed by the fear. The anger arises, you're possessed by the anger. So suppression of the mind is one of the worst, it's one of the most strongest hindrances along the path. And unfortunately, people have thought, okay, if you try to control the mind and through sheer force and control of the mind, eventually you'll become free from its sufferings. They're really deceiving themselves. So, the mind is not to be controlled. The mind is to be set free. Do you understand the difference?
Yes.
The mind is not to be suppressed. The sufferings of the mind are to be uprooted. And the difference between suppression and uprooting is they are worlds apart. By suppressing anything, you're not dealing with the cause of the problem. You're dealing with the symptoms of the problem. But by uprooting the very causes of your suffering, now you're dealing with the root cause.